Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, we'll ask a local economist why state tax revenues are pouring in well over expectations. And we'll hear about efforts to help cities create infrastructure that's more resilient to extreme weather. Those stories next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Eight, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. The State Department of Education is refusing to run a website for schools to submit legally required reading improvement plans. The department has maintained the web portal for the Move On When Reading program, but the department now says that the website's not the department's responsibility. Spokesman says the Education Department will agree to run the portal, but only if the courts rule in favor of Superintendent Diane Douglas's lawsuit against the Board of Education over who hires and fires board staff. A spokesman for the board calls the move petty and vindictive and, quote, nothing short of outrageous. And the State Court of Appeals today upheld a lower court ruling that blocks the city of Phoenix from paying police officers for doing union work while on the job. The appeals court ruled that the practice violates the state's Constitution Gifts Clause because it doesn't benefit the public. The suit was filed by the Goldwater Institute. Phoenix was spending nearly $2 million over a 2-year period for 6 full-time officers to handle union work. Arizona's tax revenues are coming in well beyond projections. What do the revenue increases say about the state's economy, and how long will this trend continue? Here now with all the answers is Dennis Hoffman, director of the Seidman Research Institute at ASU's W.P. Carey School of Business. Good to see you, Mr. Answerman.
Ted, it's great to be here as always.
6 straight months tax revenues have exceeded expectations. Were the expectations too low? What's going on out there?
Don't you remember the clairvoyant guy in December that said green shoots, look for it in the spring?
Looked like you. It looked a lot like you.
Indeed, indeed. So some of this was a surprise, but not all, not all.
Were the projections, though, too low?
Well, certainly the projections that were used to build the budget were on the order of $300 million too low just for this fiscal year. Which is pretty stunning when you put the budget to bed in March and you miss by $300 million. And I've made this point, I think, repeatedly, and I know I've made it on this show. April's the most informative month for revenues. We all know that. Everybody that does revenue forecasting knows that. If you're going to build a budget on what you know about revenues, wait for the most important month for revenues, and that's April.
I want to get to that in a second as well, but back to the reason for the surplus here, if you want to call it a surplus. Have collection procedures, have they improved or changed?
No, let's put this in perspective. So I have to revisit some history, but I hopefully won't put the audience asleep. I think many of us remember the fiscal cliff debate back in the fall of 2012 when people were afraid, taxpayers, especially well-to-do taxpayers, were afraid that the tax rates were going to go up dramatically. So what income they had that was mobile, and when you make $5 million or $10 million and more a year, quite a bit of your income is mobile within a month or two. So they slid income legally from calendar 13 back into calendar 12. That left us with a windfall, if you would, coming out of calendar 12, but a hole in calendar 13. So that translated into fiscal 13 was very good, fiscal 14 was very bad, and so what we saw in fiscal 15 this past spring was just kind of filling in that hole. If you start in fiscal 11, you let revenues grow at 5.8% every year until fiscal 15, you get to exactly what we accrued.
So we're basically shoveling dirt back in the hole.
We're on track. We are on track. Now there is a little, if I were to say, look back at my own forecast back last fall, there is an element of surprise in the corporate income tax. That'd be fair to label that a surprise to the tune of around $100 million or a little more. And that is a bit of a puzzle for us. It's a challenge because taxpayers in the corporate sector have the ability to take refunds, especially now that their rates have been dropped. And what they've chosen to do last fall in particular is they've chosen to roll those refunds, instead of taking them, they rolled them into estimated payments. And then come last spring, they made their estimated payment. So it's almost as if they paid twice.
Interesting.
So why would you do that? You do that, I think, because if you take the refund, you have to pay federal tax on it.
Right.
So they're just delaying it. They're just delaying this. So these monies will go out the door. They'll go out the door at a slower pace than what most of us thought. We'll book them. They'll be in the forecast, but they'll just be delayed.
So does that mean we can expect to see continued exceeding projections as far as tax revenues are concerned?
Oh, absolutely. The numbers that the 16 budget were built on, and I'm talking about individual income tax, corporate income tax, and the sales tax. Those numbers that they forecasted for 16 when they put this budget to bed in March, we got more money than that in 15. We beat it in 15.
So from where you sit, there was a great rush to get this budget put to bed in March. You're telling me and everyone that it makes a heck of a lot more sense to put it to bed in April when you have better ideas. Was that a mistake to rush that through?
Let me illustrate it this way. I think more information is always better. If we would have, take the calendar back 15 months. Let's go back to the budget cycle in the spring of 14. They also put the budget to bed in March. And revenues in April were disappointing. Mm-hmm. You could make the case that they would have spent a little less in March had they seen those revenues. So I don't necessarily need to be perceived as a spendaholic here. I'm just suggesting that the legislature could be more accurate and could get this right if they wait.
And do it in April as opposed to March.
Absolutely.
All right, revenues, do they reflect an improving economy? What do you think?
Oh yes, the economy is improving. We're seeing it now. The preliminaries on July even on withholding, we're talking 10%. So that's got to be a reflection. Now that can be volatile, month to month can be volatile. But that's got to be a reflection of additional hiring. But also I think what we're getting is we're getting a little bit of wage increments in here, which is good to see. We've got consumer confidence coming out end of the week. Some of the preliminary indications I've seen from the Rocky Mountain poll suggest that attitudes are improving, and so you want to take a close look at that when it comes out. So yes, revenues are improving. 300. A lot of that is going to stay. If you just have a modest growth year in revenues from this year to next, you're going to be $300 to $400 million ahead next year over what they booked in March. Now, what they'll do is they'll revise their forecasts up. So, I don't know what the quote carry forward is actually going to be when they get done.
Okay, do the revenues reflect corporate tax cuts?
In what sense? Stimulate the economy?
Exactly.
No.
No.
No, especially if you've got businesses saying, oh, we know we can take some cash, but we'll just leave it with the DOR because we don't have use for it.
The reason I ask
now
is because the idea was the corporate tax cuts are supposed to stimulate the economy, which is then supposed to add to tax revenue.
Right. And so part of that is very simply, many of our mobile, very, very important multinational corporations have the very legal ability through a transfer pricing in a legal apportionment factor basis. They can allocate those dollars to different states. They can avoid that income tax. The income tax is not a big deal to big hiring multinationals. It's more of a deal to smaller businesses in the state.
All right, so last question before you go. State's looking at a lot of money here. They're not calling it a surplus. They're just saying that we've got a lot of money here.
Sure.
Maybe they
so
want to
what do we do?
What do we do? Very quickly, what do we do?
Well, the thing to do, very, very sincerely here, is to think about one-time expenditures, investments that we can make in this economy. That we can restore some programs at the university, certainly, that have had to go as a result of these cuts. We might want to deal with the K-12 funding formulas and the school finance issues for K-12. But again, Ted, it's a very simple observation that every one of us has made here in this state. There's no such thing as a permanent expenditure. You can spend some of these dollars, and then if times get tough, you can reduce spending of those dollars. But if you allocate dollars today to tax cuts, that's a permanent decision.
Interesting. Good to have you here. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
All right, very good, Ted.
The Colorado River has carved over 600 miles of canyons in southern Utah and northern Arizona. As sublime as these chasms are, to travelers, they pose a seemingly insurmountable problem. Just how do you get to the other side? A highway marker on US 89A commemorates a successful effort that for nearly 60 years did just that, Lee's Ferry. Mormon pioneer John D. Lee came here in 1871. He established a ferry service across the Colorado River at the only natural point for 600 miles. Lee, seen here seated on his coffin, was executed in 1877 for his role in the Mountain Meadows Massacre, when 120 immigrants heading to California were murdered in Utah. The ferry operated for 52 more years, transporting thousands of hikers, horses, wagons, and even small automobiles across the river. Only the railroad and finally in 1929, the Navajo Bridge made Lee's Ferry obsolete. Today, the original Navajo Bridge is reserved for pedestrians, while the new Navajo Bridge, built beside it in 1995, caters to cars and trucks. While the ferry itself is long gone, the name remains. Lee's Ferry is now the terminus for thousands of awestruck sightseers rafting on the mighty Colorado River.
Tonight's edition of Arizona Sustainability looks at how ASU is working to help cities improve infrastructure to deal with extreme weather, which is expected to increase due to climate change. It's called the Urban Resilience to Extreme Weather-Related Events Sustainability Research Network, and it's funded by a $12 million 5-year grant from the National Science Foundation. Joining us now is the project's director, Charles Redmond. He's also the founding director of ASU's School of Sustainability. Good to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for asking me in.
You betcha. This program, in a nutshell, what are we talking about?
Well, there's a need out there, or there's a challenge that we're all facing, and that is that you just have to read the newspapers, if there are newspapers, and there are serious climatic events. We're coming up on the 10th anniversary of Katrina in New Orleans. Several years ago we had Superstorm Sandy in New York. These were extreme weather events, but they turned into human disasters. And what our project is all about is saying that doesn't have to be that way, that the weather is changing. Even no matter what you think about climate change, we do have these extreme events. We're having mudslides in Colorado this past year. In September here in Phoenix, we had what's called a 1,000-year rainstorm, and the freeways were closed and some districts lost electricity for a number of days. These things happen, but in themselves, they're not life-threatening by and large. And part of the story is we have to design the way we build our things, our infrastructure, so that they are ready to take account and they don't become disasters, but they become something that we can cope with, unpleasant but dealable.
So ASU leads this research team now, 50 researchers from 15 institutions. You got the $12 million grant there, close to 13 from the Science Foundation. What kind of research will be done?
Well, the main thing is we developed a beginning network of 9 cities, 6 of them in the U.S. and 3 in Latin America. And we want to go over their experiences, the kind of challenges they face. And Phoenix is the central city in this network. And so we have heat problems, drought problems, very occasional urban flooding problems. Cities like New York and Miami that are in our network, they have these coastal problems and heat problems and so forth. And so we're getting researchers in each of these cities together, and the key difference, and I think the reason that we were selected, is that we're trying to do this very comprehensively, not in different silos. And so we're getting engineers and planners to be talking with sociologists and social scientists, and or talking to ecologists, environmentalists, so that we don't build a infrastructure, a dam or a levee that solves one problem but makes us vulnerable to another. And that to me is the biggest stride. It's not a secret that we should be doing it this way, but it's not easy to get people together.
And it sounds as though, from what I've read, that you're going to try to do this through what you describe as a novel and more holistic approach, kind of mirroring nature, if you will. What is this all about?
Well, I mean, certainly we want to take advantage of the insights that nature provides us from the way it works in the earth. But in a way, it's holistic because we're concerned with how nature operates, but we're also concerned with human equity, that many things in the environment, the pain falls disproportionately on poor people, and somehow you and I are able to avoid the pain. And we want to address that more directly. We want to say, just because you're not powerful, we'll take your concerns as well as the concerns of more powerful, wealthy people. And when you talk about cities in a big regional level, this can make a big difference.
I know in Scottsdale, it's been mentioned as part of, as an example here, the Indian Bend Wash, and how there's so much activity along that wash, but when it floods, it becomes a wash, and the activity waits for the water to recede, and then comes. That's that's kind of not mirroring, but allowing nature to take its course, and for human activity to still enjoy recreation or what have you.
Ted, that's a great example, and that's one I think most of your listeners are acquainted with. And I only wonder why we don't have 1,000 of those examples, because it represents something that's also key to our project, and that is when infrastructure is designed. And Indian Bend Wash is infrastructure. It's a flow channel for floodwaters down the Indian Bend Wash. When it's designed, it's usually designed to be what we call fail-safe, and you want it to be fail-safe. You want, when a flood comes, when high waves come to a coastal city, you don't want them washing into the city. But as we've learned, they sometimes do.
Yeah.
And fail-safe often means build it out of cement, make it higher, on the assumption you can prevent the problem. And then sometimes the problem overwhelms you. And happily, the alternative, which many planners and engineers and designers are thinking a lot more seriously about, and we're encouraging and working with, is what we're calling safe to fail. That is, we don't want failure, but we want, if the levee or the stream channel is overwhelmed, we don't want it to be a disaster. And that's exactly what Indian Bend Wash is about. If water comes, if it's very little, it just stays in the lake system and all the roads work and everything's fine. You can play baseball there and go rollerblading. If it's a really bad flood, they close a few roads, the baseball diamonds are unusable for a week, and you have to stop rollerblading for a few days. But no one dies. Nothing's destroyed. There's no loss of property and things like this. And so that's what we want to see on a big scale. That's what Superstorm Sandy should have been. But lots of things got in the way.
So with that in mind, who's going to be conducting this research? And again, as far as the study is concerned, are you finding ways to incorporate more Indian Bend type wash places into urban activities?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's definitely the key. And We have teams in each of the 9 cities, and as I said, they're sort of comprehensive, holistic teams. But matching those teams or paired with them are teams of what I'll call practitioners, people who work for the city. Here in Phoenix, we have lots of individuals, both in Phoenix and the surrounding cities, who are engaged with us in beginning to talk about a different future and what it would take to make a different future here. And obviously, we're concerned with drought, we're concerned with water shortage, we're concerned with heat wave and urban heat island. As well as periodic floods from rainstorms.
Indeed.
And it's working. It's beginning to take hold. I think there's a lot of excitement and interest for it.
And last question, excitement and interest, because it does seem as though this extreme weather is occurring with more frequency.
I think we have to believe that. I mean, there is continuing and always will be uncertainty about weather and about extreme events. But any way you measure it, it's going up. And I have to tell you, the people who really measure it are the insurance companies. And they've done a lot of big studies, and we're looking at a seriously escalating cost to insurance companies. And this is going to lead to action. They're very excited about projects like ours because they see down the road that even in the face of extreme events, there's ways not to lose lives and lose property. Well,
congratulations on leading this, this research. It's going to be very interesting to find out what comes of it and the results. It's good to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Ted.
And Wednesday on Arizona Horizon, we'll see what's in store for Mesa when the light rail extension opens up later this month, and we'll check out an exhibit that features a skateboarder turned photographer. That's at 5:30 on the next Arizona Horizon. That is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of 8, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.